and welcome to Daily Focus. I apologize. We tried to pre-record and do it yesterday, and it didn't work. So I apologize for missing yesterday, but we do have one recorded that we can use at a future time. But yesterday we just could not make it work. But anyway, we're glad that you've joined us this morning. We're glad that you make this time a priority to be refueled and fueled by God's Word, to be able to help us navigate through today for God's glory. I want to deal with a subject right straight from our text in Proverbs chapter 11 that is very pertinent to what we're facing today. So Proverbs chapter 11, look at verse number 5 and 6. Verse number 5 says, "The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright shall deliver them, but transgressors shall be taken in their own naughtiness." In our world today, we are facing a really crazy dilemma. We have an attack like I've never ever seen on authority. God established authority. He established authority right off the bat. He established it when he created Adam in the garden, and then he said, "Adam, here's your responsibility." Our authorities always give to us our responsibilities, but they also provide our accountability. And we know that to be true all the way back to the very beginning of Genesis, when God created Adam and Eve, and he said, "Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth." He said, "You're to subdue the ground. You're to care for the garden. You're to enjoy the fruit and vegetables. You are to tend to it, and you have these responsibilities." And we know that God also said, of all these things that you can do, here's one thing that you can't do. You cannot eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the midst of the garden. You say, why did God do that? Well, because he didn't want robots. He simply wanted people to have a will to choose. And so he created man so that he would have a will to choose, but he had to have a legitimate choice. And so God gave him a choice. You can trust me, believe me, honor me, obey me, and enjoy wonderful fellowship. Or you can do your own thing and you can disobey, and you will destroy that fellowship. And you and I know the story, how Satan came, and the first thing that he attacked was God's authority. And he said, "Hath God said?" Do you really believe that's what your authority has said to you? And Eve was very clear. The day that we eat of the tree in the midst of the garden, we will die. And she was referencing dying spiritually. They would eventually die physically because of that, but they immediately died spiritually. Therefore, they were incomplete and unfit for heaven. And we know that whole story, that God created us body, soul, and spirit complete in him. And it's not until our salvation when he makes alive our spirit and we once again are complete in him and now fit for heaven. So it's not that we get to go to heaven because of us. We get to go to heaven because of God. Well, coming back to the accountability, so they were given responsibility, and the accountability came when God said, "Adam, where are you?" And Adam and Eve were hiding when they heard the voice of God. And that's accountability. That's what authority brings. We are living in a day where there is constant attack on the authority of our president. There is now an amazing attack on police officers. I was amazed to hear that in the wake of one foolish police officer who was selfish and will stand in judgment for his poor decisions, 750 police officers have been injured or killed, more injured obviously, in the wake of this attack on police officers. And then the nonsense to think that we could function apart from accountability or authority. And this idea of defunding police officers is absolutely foolish. Our text simply talks about righteousness versus wickedness. And it says in verse 5 that righteousness of the perfect or the mature shall direct his way. In other words, when we do right because of how we approach authority, when we do right because of our view of authority, then we make good decisions and God is able to direct our paths. However, if we make wicked decisions, if we decide we're going to be selfish and we don't want any accountability for our actions, then we know that destruction lies ahead. And so when we go all the way back to Genesis chapter 3, we clearly find that God made it clear that he was establishing authority in order to thwart anarchy. He makes it very clear to us that it was the authority that was established that would minimize the accusations. And it was authority that would help us regarding the agitation of our spirit. Well, we live in a day today where there is an attack on authority and saying we don't want any authority, which is saying we want no accountability, which means I want to be able to do whatever I want. And so this defunding of police is very clearly an attack on authority, not an attack on police officers and the job they do, but rather the position that they hold. And so God makes it clear that righteousness, a right view of authority, will help us to mature as we walk through life. But wickedness is an abomination, and it's the very wickedness that brings the consequences that ultimately brings the destruction. Verse number 6 says, "The righteousness of the upright shall deliver them, but transgressors shall be taken in their own naughtiness." One of the reasons we need police officers is just to establish law and order and to be able to provide accountability. I wouldn't want to drive the streets of Detroit if there were no accountability. People would be crazy. Well, unfortunately, I don't know that we will have any protection of our property if there's no accountability. Every man will do what is right in his own eyes. And we will see wickedness being promoted and destruction come as a result of naughtiness. Let me just say, God established authority for a reason. It helps us to understand that he's the ultimate authority and he delegates so that we can live a peaceable and orderly life. May we support our police officers. May we ultimately glorify God in his structure. Thank you for joining me this morning. I'll see you tomorrow morning.